My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over. Our Constitution works. Our great republic is a government of laws and not of men. Here, the people rule.
49 years ago, yesterday, Gerald Ford was sworn in as the 38th President of the United States in the wake of Richard Nixon's unprecedented resignation. President Ford's remarks after taking the oath of office are even more poignant today as Donald Trump faces charges for attempting to overturn the 2020 election. Joining us now, presidential historian and CEO of the LBJ Foundation, Mark Updegrove. And the Washington Post's Eugene Robinson has the first question for you, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Good to see you. Listen, I think I remember that day when Gerald Ford issued that pardon, and it was controversial then. It was and is still controversial now. There are people who think it was a mistake. As a historian, looking back, how do you see the lessons, if there are lessons, from that moment to the situation we're obviously in now, where we have a former president who's facing indictment on criminal charges?
The question, Eugene, is, did it set a precedent that we have to live by today? And the answer is it probably did. But Gerald Ford couldn't have seen that at the time. The reason for the pardon, which Ford granted about a month after taking office, he took office on August 9th, 1974, and the pardon was granted on September 8th, just a month later. But the reason that he did that is because he couldn't move ahead in the office of the presidency with that hanging over the fate of the country in some respects, and it was locking him up. He couldn't go on to the duties of being president and handling the issues that were holding us back at that time, including an economy that was suffering from stagflation and a lingering war in Vietnam. And so he wanted to put it past the country, and so he decided to pardon Richard Nixon. It's interesting, Eugene, because later Ford was asked what a disqualifying trait for the presidency should be. And he said arrogance. This was just 4 years after leaving the office. And he said arrogance. Not that the American people would ever elect an arrogant president, but if you ever got an arrogant president, and I mean viciously arrogant, God help the country. So he couldn't foresee a Donald Trump. And if he had, I very much doubt he would have granted that pardon.
Mark, give us some kind of sense of the difference in the country in 73 and in today in America. I mean, if you're thinking of how America it overcame Watergate, it got beyond it, it healed itself to some extent. Do you see that as possible after the Trump years and the kind of calcification of American politics that we've been talking about on this show for the last few weeks and months? Or do you think we're in such a different time now that we can't get beyond Donald Trump?
It's a dramatically different time, Katie. But one of the things that I'm struck by when you hear those inaugural remarks by Gerald Ford 49 years ago is he talks about the Constitution still works. Here, the people rule. And, the system worked at that time. Yeah. The most remarkable thing about the resignation of Richard Nixon is that he was getting pressure from his party to resign the office. Just before his resignation on August 8th, when he announced to the American people that he would not stay in the office, he was visited by three Republican leaders, the Republican leader of the House, John Rhodes, the Republican leader of the Senate, Hugh Scott, and conservative stalwart Barry Goldwater. And they urged Nixon, in the face of all the evidence that was mounting around Watergate, to resign from the presidency. And Nixon did that for the good of the country. It hurt Nixon for sure, but he did it for the good of the country. And you saw Republicans putting country above party. So it was a very different time in American politics. In my opinion, Caddy, much of this is around the cult of personality that is Donald Trump. If Donald Trump were to go away, I think 80% of this were to go away. But the principal difference between today and almost a half a century ago is, to my mind, the information landscape, that conservatives are getting a very different stream of information from conservative news outlets and a different narrative and truth.
Mark, it is interesting that you point out that Republicans could have power here if they took it. If they banded together and confronted him, it could be a very powerful moment for frankly, the health of our country. But I'm interested in your perspective on the relationship between Trump and Nixon. It almost seemed to me that Trump really admired Nixon for breaking the law, maybe not for resigning, but for breaking the law. And talk about how their relationship developed, particularly after Nixon left the White House.
Nixon wrote Trump a letter that Trump displayed in the White House, in which I believe Pat Nixon had seen Donald Trump on Phil Donahue. And he said that I didn't see the program, but Mrs. Nixon says you have the stuff. You know, you have something. And if you ever did go into politics, then good luck. I don't remember the exact content, but it was a very encouraging letter from Richard Nixon. I don't know Trump's view of Nixon, but I think he was certainly flattered by the attention of Richard Nixon. This is somebody who wanted to be around power, who wanted all the flattery he could get. So getting some approbation from a former president was, I'm sure, very fulfilling to Donald Trump at that time.
All right, presidential historian and CEO of the LBJ Foundation, Mark Optegrove, thank you very much for being on this morning.